So our first guest is a professor. He's a professor of history, and he has a new book called The Great Black Hope. Some of you may have heard of the phrase the Great White Hope, but his book is called The Great Black Hope. And it's about athletes, specifically Black quarterbacks. So his name is Professor Lewis Moore, and we welcome him to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being our guest. And we see the book behind you. So um, now, was that your idea to call it the Great Black Hope, or was that the publisher's idea, or?
So that's a good question. I can't remember. I think it was a little bit of both. I had the whole idea, the making of the black quarterback. I think the original one that I had was like the Battle of the Black Bombers. Because it was about the game that they played, September 30th, 1979, and CBS called it the Battle of the Bombers. So it was a play on that, and then we went with the Great Black Hope after I signed the contract.
Well, it's definitely eye-catching and could be triggering for some people, but you want your book title to grab attention, and it definitely does that. And the Great White Hope is an old phrase. It's used a lot of different ways, but it's for those who don't know, and I know you do. It's related to the boxer Jack Johnson in the 20s. I believe he was in the 1920s. And was it the 1920s or the
So he was the heavyweight champion
1910s?
from 1908 to 1915. So yeah.
Oh, okay. So it was even earlier than that. Okay. So I knew it was like, early 1900s. And he was winning, and that wasn't considered kosher. And so they had this white boxer that was to beat him, but the depiction, what people need to watch the James Earl Jones, since we've recently lost him, the movie that he starred in. So, because it really gives you some good background. But they made the white, they wanted Jack Johnson to take a dive, and he was going to, but then he didn't. So, but they had the white boxer was called the Great White Hope because it was too triggering at the time for a black boxer to be winning game, winning bouts, is it called?
Yeah,
Matches. I don't
bouts,
watch
matches, bouts,
boxing.
contests. Yep.
Okay. So anyway, the black quarterback is tell us what made you focus on that, because I see your background in terms of your other books are all sports related. And what made you talk about boxing? In fact, your first book, I Fight
Yep.
for a Living. So, what made you select the black quarterback as your next focus?
Yeah. So as you said, my books, the boxing books I fight for living, the other ones about civil rights and black athlete, we will win the day. And what I try to do is I try to tell the story of America through the black athlete. So this was part of that, and I wanted to write a book about the black quarterback. I love watching football. I love black quarterbacks. So it's just about trying to find the right idea. Trying to, do you tell everyone's story or do you tell a very specific story? So this one wound up using Doug Williams and then Vince Evans. So Doug's very popular, right? He's on the cover of the book. He wins the Super Bowl. And then Vince Evans, who was popular, but not, people don't know him, to tell the story of not only their story, but the black quarterback. And then also the title is The Great Black Hope, because it's not only just about them and trying to get this position where, the NFL said you can't play this, but it's also about black Americans, right? In the civil rights movement, post civil rights movement, and not just about football, but about life, right? About moving up that ladder when they're denied so many opportunities, even though they have qualifications. So a lot of times you would see yourself in them, right? Like if they can make it, if they can play this position that's thought of as you have to be the smartest person, you have to be the leader, then I'll get an opportunity too. So there's a lot of hope wrapped up in their success. So guys like, Vince and Doug, and especially when Doug wins the Super Bowl in 1988.
Yeah, a lot of people, especially younger people, may not realize or be aware of how challenging that quarterback spot was for Black athletes because the NFL is now so Black just overall. And Black quarterbacks in college, I don't watch college ball, but I know that it's a farm system where it's like, you move from college to the pros. Now, I'm a big pro football fan, big fan. So I love the sport. It's a true team sport, and I watch it every week. Although my team that I support right now is kind of iffy, uh, but I just love the game. I love the sport itself. Uh, it is a little violent, and you want people to be safe, but it's a man's sport, if it's for lack of a better term. If you want to see some grown men going at it, football is a sport for you. So anyway, um, younger people may not realize how coveted that spot was, or and has been for decades, because it was considered to be the the one spot where it required intelligence, brains more than brawn. And so the idea was that Black players weren't up to snuff.
Right, right. And so that's, I mean, that's part of why it's such a big deal, right? So
Yeah,
once this position became the position around the 1940s, the person had to be the smartest person on the field. He had to be the leader. And so it's thought that, white players wouldn't follow black men. Black men couldn't lead. Black men couldn't learn the offense. Would white Southerners listen to a black guy? Sometimes it was about his dialect. So Doug Williams is from the, rural Louisiana. So he doesn't sound like, somebody from the North or somebody from the West. And so are you going to be able to understand them? And so there's a host of excuses to keep them out of this position that has nothing to do with their talent. And other things is just that, there's that trope about black athletes being more athletic and fast. And so
right.
they would
There
see
is
them,
that joke too.
boom, you're another position, right? You want to play football? Okay, you're a cornerback, you're a receiver, you're anything but a quarterback. And so you're exactly right. Young kids don't understand that because almost half the starting quarterbacks are black now. And there's a lot of
Right.
black quarterbacks who play at the college level and didn't get to play at the pro level. Whereas when Doug and Vince were playing, there were a number of black quarterbacks at the college level, but they're being told no at the pro level for those various reasons.
Right. Warren Moon,
Yeah.
who quarterback for the used to be the Houston Oilers before they changed. But he played in Canada, and some other Black quarterbacks did the same. See, I know about the sport. I watch football.
You never said your team, by the way.
I didn't. So my backstory. The people who watch the show know I was a lifelong Dallas Cowboy fan. My brothers adopted the Cowboys. So when we were growing up, that was the only team I knew anything about. And I grew up in Virginia, which the natural team was supposed to be the Redskins, well, now the Commanders. But my brothers adopted the Cowboys. So that was the only team I knew anything about. It's the only team I watched. Big Cowboy fan. But as things happen from time to time, uh, I got tired of them losing. So after Troy Aikman, they haven't won. They haven't gone to the Super Bowl since Troy Aikman. And when they re-signed Tony Romo, that's when I decided they weren't my team anymore, because I knew Tony Romo was not going to take them to the Super Bowl. So it was stupid for them to re-sign it. I'm just saying, how do you re-sign somebody who's not going to take you to the Super Bowl? So I was out of there after that. So I adopted the Seattle Seahawks as my team. And that was before they went to the Super Bowl, but they were up and coming rising team. And Russell Wilson was an up and coming rising quarterback. And they really were an awesome team during that time. So now they're rebuilding. They played last night.
Yep.
They don't, sometimes they win and sometimes they don't. That's what they are. And sometimes they let a team hang around instead of like taking it to them and just putting them away. They let the team hang around and keep the game close, and then they end up losing. And so, but that's my team for now. And I'm starting to watch the Texans a little bit more. The Texans didn't have a winning spirit That was why I didn't adopt them. But
Okay.
they're looking a little bit better now. So but I love the game of football. It is a true team sport. It's not a it's even a sport where somebody who thinks they're all that, a player who thinks they're all that, that game shows them they're not
Right.
if they're not playing with a team mentality. So that's why I love this. So tell us some anecdotes from the book that you might want people to be aware of that they may not be aware
Yeah, so for me, and part of the my favorite part writing this is just digging into their lives and kind of telling that story from the beginning. And so one of the reasons why I chose those two players, Doug Williams and Vince Evans, because they're both born in 1955. They're both born in the South.
of. Mm,
And Doug is, as I said before, rural Louisiana in this place called Cheneyville. And as I say right up the beginning of the book, it's not a city, it's not a town, it's just a black community, right? That is made post Reconstruction when the black folks stayed on the land there, and land was everything to them. They tried everything they could to stay away from like factories and jobs, and let's just own land, right? Because that's where they found power. And they wound up in the 1950s building their football field. They built, someone's land had the baseball field where the local Negro League would play, and everybody would have a feast at the games. So this is the community that he comes from, and this is what made him special. This kind of all black nurturing community. And part of his struggles too is the fact that he had never been outside of that beautiful black bubble until he comes to Tampa Bay, right? The deepest team, the deepest Southern team in the NFL. And so trying to kind of manage that, whereas not Warren Moon, whereas Vince Evans, I should have talked more about Warren Moon, but stuff gets cut. But comes from Greensboro, though, the heart of the civil rights movement, where they had the
okay.
student sit-ins, and his family's very middle class, educated parents, master's degrees, teachers. He grows up in a black middle class neighborhood. And he's what I tell folks when I explain this book, he's like, remember the Titans. In 1971, when there's forced busing for integration in the South, he's the kid on the bus going to a previous like white school. And so he's the quarterback there, right? So you get thrown in the middle of busing. He's not the linebacker like we saw in remember the Titans. He's the star quarterback. And so the expectations of surrounding him about race in the community, because that's the first time football season is the first time a community gets to see is integration going to work, right? And he's in a, if there's football fans out there listening, he plays in the single wing in high school, which is an outdated offense then as it is now, more of a runner than a thrower. And by sheer like will, like this idea that I want to play quarterback at the college level and at the pro level, he transforms himself into a professional quarterback. It's an amazing story. Somebody who doesn't even throw the ball with the laces, if you could believe that. And somehow he's able to make it to be this very electrifying quarterback, first with the Bears and then later on with the Raiders. So that's kind of what I do throughout the book, is tell their journeys, and then at the same
Okay.
time, this is what it's like to be a black quarterback. And so I think it works well. It's a great narrative, and obviously it ends with Doug Williams on the mountaintop, right, making it to the Super Bowl and what that meant to him, but also the black community in DC, a place that he loved, and also Black America.
Yeah. When he won, the year that he won was the year that the football league was on strike, so they only had like half of a season. And when he won, it was almost like they didn't really give him his due because they didn't play a full season, and it was like, well, he won, and it wasn't a full season. So they really didn't give, and the earlier black quarterbacks that were playing, sometimes the offensive lines wouldn't block for them like they would block for the white quarterbacks. I mean, it was a lot going on just to integrate, and I'm using that literally and figuratively, to integrate black quarterbacks into the league, because people had to adjust their minds to the fact that a black player could be more than a running back or a wide receiver, uh, or on the defensive side, the cornerback. So it took a lot of years because Doug Williams played. What year did you say it was?
So Doug was drafted in 1978, and then he won the Super Bowl in the 88 season. So the strike
Okay,
was 87. They played the Super Bowl in 88. And
88.
what's
So,
what's so yeah, I was gonna say what's interesting about that strike is that the 87 strike gives a number of black quarterbacks an opportunity to play those 3 or 4 games. So if anyone is listening is familiar with HBCU football, Jerry Rice's college quarterback, Willie Totten, finally gets an opportunity. He should have had one all along. Guys like Reggie Collier play, who was actually with the Cowboys in '86. He played at Southern Miss. Very good quarterback. Should have had an opportunity. Vince Evans gets to get back in the league. So black quarterbacks see it as this opportunity, right? Okay, you're on strike. You're looking for scat players. Well, we're
right.
here, and you haven't been able to. You haven't wanted to use us. Same thing happens in 1974. There's a strike, and that's what allows, James Harris, who played for the Rams, crosses the picket line early. J.J. Jones, who went to Fisk, undefeated season at Fisk in, I want to say 1973, crosses the picket line for his shot for the Jets, makes the taxi team, and then Joe Gillum goes to Tennessee State, crosses the picket line, wins the starting job for the first 6 games for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So,
Oh, okay. So I didn't know about that part of the history of it before my time in terms of just being aware of what was going on and everything. But I do have an anecdote for you. I'm checking to see if we have any questions on from the viewers. But I went to Georgetown, so I'm I had a business course. It was called Social Responsibilities of Business, and I don't remember how the subject came up, but the professor asked the question, why are there no black quarterbacks in the NFL? And I was the only black student in the class, which was the case in most of my classes at Georgetown. And this a male student raised his hand. See, at the time, I didn't even know that there weren't any black quarterbacks. I never, because I wasn't watching football then. But he said because, and he raised his hand, and he said because black people aren't smart enough to be quarterback. This is what he said out loud in the class, in a college class at Georgetown University, and the professor didn't push back or he didn't challenge them. And I'm sitting there like, did he actually say that when I'm sitting here? It was just very shocking. But that's how ingrained that was
all right,
in just the idea that a black person wasn't smart enough to be quarterback. And I guess that might give some people some comfort somehow to think that with some things that aren't true, believing tropes. But eventually the cream rises to the top, and the black quarterback were not going to be denied continually. And what it's changed first in college football. And then because it's a farm system, it eventually made its way into the NFL. And then it just became commonplace. But even the part about being commonplace is still relatively new. 10, 15 years, the last 10,
right,
15 years or so. So there are some things that are still changing. And, the coaches are I still have a challenge with coaches. We do
right.
have black coaches in the NFL. We don't have a lot, but we do have. We're getting more. They're getting more of them. But it's a building process, and it didn't happen overnight for sure. And hopefully your book will educate younger people that what the world they live in now didn't hasn't always been. It's
Right.
it was a lot of struggle, a lot of work, a lot of rejection, you know, and disappointment. They used to turn black quarterbacks into running backs when they got to the NFL, or
Right,
wide
right,
receivers.
right. Receivers, cornerbacks, yeah,
Yeah,
anything.
even out of
Yeah,
college, they would not let them be a quarterback. They would turn them into a running back or a wide receiver. So now, have your book just recently came out because we read about it coming out. And that's what, September 24th, so last week.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
last week.
brand new.
Yes, yeah, brand
Okay.
new, brand new.
So you teach history. Um, do you plan to use your book in your classes?
I tend not to assign my books in my classes because I don't want this idea that I'm having the students pay for it. Um, but if the school buys it as an ebook and everyone gets to use it for free, then I'll do it. Because I do teach a class on I have a sports class. I teach every other year African American history class. So those are books that would work really well. That book worked really well in those classes. So if there's educators out there, yeah, definitely sign that. All my books are very class friendly. I was last night I did a Zoom with a classroom in New Hampshire. They used my I Fight for a Living book. A lot of classes use the Civil Rights of Black Athlete book, the We Will Win the Day. So I can imagine other professors adopting it into their classroom or in the high school level. It's a very readable book.
So now what team do you like?
It's a tough question. So I'm a free agent.
You're a free agent. Okay. You
I
you
like
like the
watching black
sport?
quarterbacks. Yeah. So I like
Okay.
Mahomes. I like Lamar Jackson. Since we're out here in Michigan, I'll start watching the Lions a lot more now that they're good.
Okay. Yeah, they
So
beat my
yeah,
team last night.
yeah, we
I was
did, we did, we did. It was
disappointed.
close. It was close.
See, well, it really never was close
It
because
was, yeah,
whenever you're coming from behind trying to catch up, the clock is going to be, you know, your enemy. And if
right.
you either have to match the team, court touchdown for touchdown, or at least be in it. And uh, what's the play? Metcalf's. What
That,
Metcalf is a
yeah,
good player. However, he's a hot dog, and so he'll be trying like he was last night. He was trying to get some extra yards instead of just protecting the ball. You
right,
got a
going
first
down. Yeah,
down, fall down or stop or whatever. He's trying to be on the highlight reels and get some extra yards and then fumbles, and then the other team gets the ball. And didn't they run it all the way back for a touchdown? Or they got all the way, they got close to a touchdown, and then it was just a matter of time.
yeah. It was
So
14-0, but they were one score away in the fourth quarter. They just couldn't sustain a
yeah,
drive.
but it was
Yeah,
only like a few minutes left. It wasn't enough
right.
time.
Yeah,
It's
nope,
like everything has to go your way when you do it like that, and
right,
normally it doesn't. Not when you're playing a good team.
right.
You
But they'll
know
be okay. Seattle will be okay.
they will, but are they
They
going to
have a
the
black quarterback, so
playoff?
they'll be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's on. He's. I don't know if they'll get there with Geno Smith
Oh
because
yeah,
he's like on the far. He's on the end of his career. He's not a up and coming. He's
he's
not a
not.
rising star. He's like a veteran that never didn't make it all the way. I don't.
Right. It
I,
was what he said. They tried to write me off, but I didn't write them back. And so,
Yeah, he did. I mean, he's hung in
oh,
there, but I don't know if they can make it to really if they can win a playoff game with him.
yeah, we'll see. We'll
See,
see.
that's what we have to be on the lookout for. So, but so Grand Valley State, that's where you teach. Where's
Yep.
that exactly?
That's in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So about 2 hours from Detroit, 2.5 from Chicago, right on the west side of the state.
Okay, is it an HBCU?
No, 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 no.
Okay,
We
not at all. You said not.
not at all. Not at all. Not no, not even close.
Well, Grand
But
Rapids
but
would be an odd place to put one,
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
for sure.
Chris Paul a couple years ago had a jacket made with all the HBCUs on it, and he accidentally put Grand Valley State on there. But
Oh, okay.
but
It
it
has
is
a name that sounds like it
right,
could be a HBCU. That's
right,
why, because
right.
there's another Valley State that
Fort
isn't.
Valley. So he meant to have Fort Valley State on his jacket, and
Okay.
his designer put Grand Valley State on the jacket. And so,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
no, no,
Well,
not at all. Not even close.
yeah. So when you teach sports at the university where you are you teaching it? Are your classes mostly black students? Probably not. If it's
No.
or how is that?
So I teach two different sports classes. I have one class is just it's about American sports, and then there's one on the black athlete, which is a diaspora. Like we talk about Africa, we talk about black athletes everywhere, like Great
Oh,
Britain,
okay.
France, Brazil, and then we hit the US, the second class. That used to be so it's in history and African American studies, and it used to be I would say 90% black. And then we just kind of lost a lot of minors, African American studies minors, and so the class isn't as much anymore. It's, you know, it's half and half. But that's probably like if you take a class like that, or my African American history class, if you're a black student, it's probably one of the few times where you'll be in a class where at least half the people look like you. So yeah. So
Okay.
it is interesting, you know, sometimes you do teach this history to, I mean, everybody's, you know, history's for everybody.
Yes, it is.
So it's good for these folks, especially at this school. They come from a lot of suburbs, but a lot of small rural farm towns. And so when you're able to, you know, the beauty about teaching sports history is that you could talk about a lot of difficult subjects, and they don't know you're talking about difficult subjects because you're talking about sports.
Just
So we
talking
can talk
about
about
sport.
race, ethnicity, gender, a lot of things, and you know, but it's through the lens of sports, and so it's a little bit easier for people to digest.
Okay. Well, Professor Moore, thank you so much for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV. And we want people to go out and get your book, The Great Black Hope. And congratulations on publishing it and
Yeah,
having it
thank you for
out
having
in
me.
the world. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
All right, you too. Bye.